Welcome to the show with personal brand authority, Lida Citroen. Lida is an award-winning executive coach, speaker, and author working with clients in over 30 countries. She helps professionals, entrepreneurs, and business leaders manage the way they're perceived by the people who matter most. From leadership development, influence building, to strategic communications and social media positioning, Lida's work is thoughtful, motivating, and practical. Get ready for a great program. Here's Lida.
Well, hello. Welcome to all of you out there in LinkedIn Live land. I am so excited to be with you today. I think today might be a very special program because not only is it the end of the year, so it's our last Live with Lida show before we close out 2024, but it's actually a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And so I'm really excited for the conversation. If you've been on one of my live programs before, you know one of my favorite things to ask is please drop into the chat where you're dialing in from, what part of the world, what part of the States, or what country you're joining us today. So I see a few of you are doing that. Thank you. I'll check that periodically. And be sure to say hi. We have some great friends that are joining us on this. So here's something to think about. Have you ever hired a coach? Have you ever hired either maybe a professional sports coach, right? Maybe you were an athlete in college or university and you needed a coach to help you get better. In your career, have you hired a coach? A business coach if you're an entrepreneur, or an executive coach, a professional coach if you're growing your professional career. Have you ever hired a coach? I hire coaches. I'm also a coach. The reason I hire coaches is because I find the process fascinating and I sometimes want to learn. I am an executive coach to business leaders all over the world in over 30 countries. Some of them are emerging professional talent, some of them are high potential talent, some of them are very senior leaders who are just looking to see if there's more. Whether I've hired a coach or whether I do coaching, in my experience, I think people go to coaching for a couple different reasons. First, sometimes we feel stuck, right? We don't know why we can't break through, or there's an obstacle or a challenge that we don't feel we have the tools to deal with. So we go to an expert who can help us navigate those challenges and break through that obstacle. I see a lot of people come to coaching for another reason. And that's partly why I go to coaching, because I always want to know if there's more. Is there something more I could learn? Is there a new approach that I could consider? Is there something more I could be doing to grow my career, to grow the value that I offer to my clients, and therefore become better and smarter in how I work? So I think whatever reason someone goes to coaching, it's healthy, it's a good experience, it should be a good experience. There are a lot of different coaching styles. I've hired coaches who were more by the book, and I was given spreadsheets and tracking schedules and milestones and benchmarks. And I've gone to coaches who were more spiritual in how they talked to me and brought forward what I was trying to accomplish. And I've gone to everything in between because I think the coaching process is healthy, it's beautiful. If done right, it is game changing. What we're talking about today, though, is have you ever considered as a leader coaching as a mindset in how you grow your team? Now, we have external coaches, and sometimes companies have internal coaches, right? They have a pool of coaches that work internally in the company. But we're talking about today leading with a coaching mindset. How do you bring the philosophy, the approach of coaching into how you grow your team and how you grow your organization? It's been well documented and well studied that people don't leave jobs. They don't leave companies. They leave bosses. And is that gap between what makes a good boss and a boss people will leave, Does it have something to do with a coaching mindset? I'm looking forward to exploring that in today's conversation. Oh, I see we have people from North Dakota. Danica, I'm sure it's a little chilly where you are. Maryland, also probably a little cold. Fort Worth, Texas, maybe a little warmer. Wow, Hassan in Saudi Arabia. Thank you for joining us so far away. Indiana, wonderful. I know we have New York. I'm in Colorado. My guest is in Los Angeles. And Sabrina, who manages the chat, is in Pennsylvania. So I think we've got a lot of places covered. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to introduce today's guest, and he has a very long introduction, but listen to what I'm about to say because it will blow your mind. Dr. Damian Goldvarg is a world-renowned executive coach with over 30 years of experience in the field. He was born and raised in Argentina. You'll hear the accent in a moment. He has worked with individuals and organizations over 60 countries, so he's doubled what I've done, offering services in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. He is a master certified coach, EIA master practitioner, and he received his PhD in organizational psychology from Alliant University in California. He's also an accredited team coach and an accredited coach supervisor. He facilitates certifications in professional coaching, mentor coaching, team coaching, and coaching supervision. Dr. Goldvarg was the 2013 to 2014 International Coaching Federation Global President. That, my friends, is a big deal. He has authored and co-authored 11 coaching books, and I think he has a new one coming out he's going to talk about. And he has received the ICF Circle of Distinction Award and the EMCC Supervision Award for his contributions to the field. Please help me welcome, so excited to hear from, and I know you're going to absolutely love what he has to say, Damian Goldvarg.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here with you today.
Well, I mean, reading that biography, I mean, I can't help but be a little bit intimidated, but I know you personally, so I know that this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So, some of us get into the field of coaching sort of by accident, right? We're just we give a lot of advice, and then before long, people just say we're a coach. How did you find yourself into this field?
The same way, by accident. I didn't look for it either. My background before getting my PhD in organizational psychology, I was a clinical psychologist in Argentina. And when I moved to the United States, I knew I wanted to work in leadership development. I always was fascinated by leadership, how people can influence others, the topic of your book, how we influence others and how we can contribute to make the world a better place for everybody. So from that stand, I was working on leadership. I was hired by a company to do leadership trainings worldwide. And the goal was to train leaders on coaching skills and other leadership skills in person doing leadership training. And after I got the job working there for a few months, the company was Personnel Decisions International, PDI, that was acquired now by Conferry. And that company sent me all over the world, like we're talking about more than 60 countries to train leaders. And at one point they asked me, would you like to also coach these leaders, not only to train them, but would you work with them one-on-one? I said, okay, let's try. Let's do it. And I got a couple of days training, and what I don't think was enough, but this is what they offered to the consultant. We were all psychologists, so we had some already background in consulting and working relationships, and so I started doing it, and I loved it. And then when I left the company, I decided to go through formal coaching training because I wanted to get my credential, and I got my credential in 2002. But do you know what? My first job as a psychologist in Argentina was working in the public schools. I was hired by the school district to work in public schools to help teachers, principals, and parents to be more effective in their jobs. Wow. And that was coaching. We're talking about 87. So No, sorry, in 87, I was finishing high school. 97,
I was going
97.
to say, you look really good if you if you were
Now, wait,
doing
wait,
that
wait,
at
wait. I'm sorry. I'm keeping track of years. I moved to the
It's
United States
okay.
in 1990, so it was
Okay.
87. It was the right
Okay.
time. It's more
There you
like
go.
yes, it is almost 40 years ago. So
Wow.
yes, I so my first job as a psychologist was really doing coaching because it was helping principals, teachers, parents to be more effective in their job. And this is what is coaching about, what you were saying before. How
Mhm.
do you go from good to great? How do you do the word more? So that was
Mhm.
exactly what I was doing. So the coaching as a professional practice didn't exist at that time. But I can say that I have been doing this job supporting people since then.
So, and thank you for that background. Fascinating. And to come into this from a psychology perspective must have given you such an interesting lens to see how people think and how they process. So I kind of set it up by saying what I see as the reason people sometimes go to coaching is they're stuck or they hit a challenge or they just want to know if there's something more. How do you define coaching?
Well, I use most of the time to define coaching the definition from the International Coaching Federation. So, the International Coaching Federation is the body that develops coaching worldwide, that provides the certifications for coaches, for coaching schools. And I got very involved with them when I went through my coaching training. I got my credential. First, locally in my local chapter, trying to bring a community, be part of a community, and then eventually I became part of the global community, and I was elected the first Latino president in the organization, the first and last one, because after me there were not anybody
That's
else from
great.
Latin America. And with that job, what was a lot of responsibility because we're talking, it's an association with 40,000 coaches worldwide. And the International Coach Federation defines coaching as a process that
Mhm.
inspire people to maximize their potential. So this is what you were talking about more is exactly about that, is how we maximize our potential so we can be even more effective. So it's not necessarily about fixing or solving a problem, but going
Mhm.
from good to great, preparing us for the future. And I am very interested in that topic. I also got the certification in foresight, the study of the future. You will find some of that in my new book coming up next year. That I think it's important for leaders to be thinking ahead, paying attention to what is coming. And when I was working for PDI Personal Decisions International, I had three jobs. Part was training, part was coaching, but they also asked me to do another job that was assessment. So I was doing assessment centers with leaders worldwide, big companies, to help leaders to see where they were, where they needed to go, and what was the gap between
Right.
where they were and where they needed to go. And interestingly, when I was, and we're talking about this was more than 15 years ago, but still, I think the information still works because the two areas where most leaders needed to work were foresight or strategic thinking, looking at the future and being prepared for the future, and coaching, developing their people. So I thought, okay, I wanted to be sure that I train myself so I can go to the next level. So when I work with leaders worldwide, I can be prepared to support them and challenge them to be more effective at both, at being prepared for the future and thinking strategically, and by being effective at coaching and develop people around them. So when we're talking about having a coaching mindset, means thinking how I can support people around me so they can go from good to great. How I can develop my team members, everybody that work with me, around me, so they can go to the next level of effectiveness. So coaching is about that, is supporting others so they can go to the next level. And this is not only about productivity, but Lida, I think also my personal philosophy is like life is short. We need to be present. We need to be paying attention to what is important to us, to live according to our values, but get fulfillment and satisfaction. And most of the time, you get that through relationships. So
Mm.
results are great, getting whatever we need to get, productivity is important, but at the end of the day, I believe that the most important are our relationships and the people we love and the people that we care about. So how we can cultivate these relationships. And I think that your book also talk about that. In the new roles of influence, you have a section about Yes, I have it close to me because I'm thinking how I'm going to add some of the ideas in my own
Shameless
book.
plug, shameless plug.
Yeah, and I do believe that there we align in that
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
terms of influencing people, and the role of influences are for people having more fulfilling and satisfying working relationships. So I do believe that coaching provided. That's the reason why Lida, I get everybody in my family to go through coaching training. So I should add that to my bio. I got my parents, my
Really?
brothers, their wives, my nephew, my partner in life, four of my closest friends to go through coaching training because I believe that coaching training provides you with the skills to have more fulfilling relationships. That was a little bit selfish because I benefit from all of that. I finish.
I'm
I
what
benefit by them being more listening better, being more present and all of that stuff.
I'm wondering at the holidays when you're all together in Buenos Aires, like who's coaching who? You know, how is that conversation? No, I'm coaching you. No, I'm coaching you. I mean, that's fabulous because really what you're talking about is empathy and compassion and listening without judgment and all. Yes, all the things I talk about in my book are things that good coaches should know how to do. One example that I've heard you speak about, and I've got a little bit of a teaser because I had a chance to look at your upcoming book, which is called, what's the title of the upcoming book?
It's lead with a coaching mindset.
Lead with a Coaching Mindset. I believe it's out next summer. Is that right? In
Yeah.
2025?
Yep.
Perfect. Um, is you talk about an example of the Prime Minister of New Zealand and how she navigated the situation during COVID. And I mean, most of the people that are listening are probably not prime ministers of their country, but there were examples that I extracted from that case study that would be helpful, I think, for people listening. Would you mind sharing that case study here?
Yeah, so there are different case studies that I present in the book, and the idea is to inspire people by learning
Mhm.
from different people. How effective? Most of the time, there is the consistency in terms of then being open-minded, not being afraid. What Lida, many times in our life, what stop us are our
Mhm.
fears of how we're going to look, or our fears that we're going to make a mistake. But instead of that, how you bring people together and how you can be authentic. And this is something that I appreciate. It's about embracing our imperfections. It's like I
Mm.
really like the work of Brené Brown. You know Brené
Mm.
Brown. I'm not sure that you know her,
Of course.
and I really like what she has to say about that. It's about we cannot get results without collaborating.
Mhm.
Anything we do requires collaboration. So,
Right.
how effective are we at bringing people together and thinking about other people and how we can support each other? So, I think that in her case and in other case studies that I am presenting in the book, what I am very interested in is being sure that these leaders demonstrate listening, demonstrate collaboration, demonstrate sometimes taking risks. I think in life we need to take risks. Like I took a risk when I moved to the United States. I left behind my country, and we all and probably you have good stories in your life where you have to take risks,
Mhm.
and we take risks, and this is what helps us to move forward and contribute and make a difference. So if we are too comfortable, and that's okay. I'm not having any judgment about being too comfortable. But if you want to make a bigger impact, if you want to influence people, being comfortable will not help you. And so that's an invitation for people now that it's the end of the year and we are starting new year 2025. I'm wondering, how are you willing to take some risks in your life? What risks do you need to take so you can have a life? I like to say a life that you love. So, do you love your life? If you don't love your life, what do you need to do, to think? What mindset do you need to love your life? And that you cannot do it alone. It requires
Hmm.
that you collaborate, that you listen to other people, that you build trust, that you cultivate your relationships. I like the metaphor of the plant. I think relationships are like a plant. You need to water, you need to be in the sun. If you don't take care, the plants die. And relationships are the same. When you stop paying attention to your relationship, they die.
So I have a question for the audience. I know we have folks from all over the US, all over the world. My question to the to people listening is, are you are you leading a team? Are you in a position where you have people that you want to learn how to lead with a coaching mindset? Or do you have a leader that is leading you who perhaps you are hoping to be able to infuse some of what you learned today into conversation? So if you wouldn't mind, if you're listening, watching this program, drop in the chat. Are you a leader looking to learn how to lead with a coaching mindset? Or are you someone who has a leader that perhaps isn't modeling what we're talking about? I think that'll help us as we move through the conversation. So in the case of leaders that you've seen, Damien, where they've done a really good job, you mentioned things like being open, taking risks, being willing to pivot, right? If the direction isn't working, what are some other qualities that leaders can do, or even a small leader, right? You're leading a small team. You're not leading an organization. What are some other things we can do to start moving ourselves in the direction of a coaching mindset instead of that outcome focused that you mentioned?
So the first step is to be intentional. Intentional means talking to ourselves and telling ourselves, okay, developing people is important. If not, if I have time, I will do it. But realizing if I don't have time, there is a big cost. What is the cost of not developing your people, in not investing time in your people so they can go to the next level? So coaching here is about coaching mindset is about listening to people and seeing where they are and where they need to be, and what is the gap between where they are and where they need to be, and how we as bosses, as leaders, can support them in going through that journey. And particularly for younger generations, leader people, they want that. And if they had
Yeah.
to choose two jobs, they may choose, and I wrote that in the book, if they had to choose between a boss that invests time on them and a leader that they don't invest time because it's busy in something else, they would choose probably places where there are opportunities to learn and grow. So here, basically, a coaching mindset is a growth learning framework, a growth learning approach. So when I am working with people, how I support them so they can keep learning, growing, developing, stretching, challenging them. And it's not at the amount of time, but it's the quality of time. Doesn't mean necessarily that you have to have formal coaching conversation, but informally, when you're walking to meetings, when you're driving to places, being curious, being interested. What is next for you? Where are you going? What do you need? So to align future interests from people to what are the current opportunities. So when the leader need to assign tasks and activities, they can keep that in mind, where people want to go and what kind of assignment they can keep in mind, so people can use that edge, so they can go and do something new or different. And then you were talking about resilience, ability to be flexible and change. It's like how we deal with setbacks, how we are prepared for the unprepared, how we deal in this world of uncertainty, how we embrace uncertainty instead of fighting it. But I do believe that the key element is just realizing that if we don't spend time developing people, it is a cost. We may lose them, they may lose their motivation.
Right.
And I believe people come to work motivated most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time.
Well,
People
we
bring
want
their
it to mean something. Yeah.
Most of the time people come to work with motivation, but the organization take that motivation away. So sometimes when people think, okay, how do you motivate your employees? I like to tell them the issue is not how you motivate them, but how you are sure that you do not demotivate them. Because many times all of the energy and the motivation that they bring to work, it's gone because of politics, organizational culture. Culture means how things are being done, not what people say or what is written in papers, but what really how people are treated.
Right.
So all of that demotivate people. They wonder why I'm working here.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, if I'm in a big organization and I'm not at the top, and I want to adopt a coaching mindset and I want to empower and lead my team, not just manage them, because you and I know there's a difference between managing and leading. But if I'm getting pressure from my boss and my boss's boss to be outcome focused and to drill down into those, what you were kind of hinting at, if the culture isn't right, then I'm not going to be effective, am I? If I'm trying to adopt this mindset and grow this team, but I'm getting pressure at a certain point, does that become too difficult, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great point because over the years I have worked with leaders at different levels of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I coach leaders at the top, and the middle managers were not as coach oriented like the leaders. So, the top that I was coaching was
Right.
definitely coach like, they
Okay.
coach their manager, but then the manager didn't do it to the next level.
Got
So
it.
it was a gap there. Um, that is easier to work when it's the other way around. When the leader, the top, is not coaching and not providing that model, is more difficult. So I believe that at the end of the day, there are things you cannot change, I think that you can change. And I like to use this distinction with my clients. I always ask them, I know the things you cannot change, but what are the things that you can change? So maybe you cannot get your boss or your leader to change their expectations, but you can be different with the people working for you. How do you want to show up as a leader with the people working for you? What kind of the leader you want to be? And you cannot put excuses about your boss or economics, or yes, we all have a lot of reason not to do things, but you can still choose. So this is the area what I love about coaching is we can choose. Sometimes when we are not aware or we don't believe we can choose, we can still do. So this is the reason why I am in love with coaching, and I got everybody in my family because I wanted to be coached, because I want them to be more aware about how we live our lives based on what we think is possible. So what is possible is like a box. This is possible. So in coaching, we want to make this bigger. We want to, okay, what else is possible that we are not seeing, that we don't believe? Sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. So what do we need to do to believe in ourselves? Or sometimes it's a blind spot. It's like when we are driving, there is an angle we cannot see. We need to look. If we don't see, we can have an accident. So in
Right.
life, it's the same thing. We all have blind spots. There are things we are not seeing. And if we don't stop and look at there, we may be missing. We may have an accident, or we may be missing opportunities. So this is one of my favorite questions in coaching. Is okay, what we may not be seeing here. If you're not paying attention in developing your people, what is the cost? What you may not be seeing if you don't give this a priority, regardless of how much your boss or leader put pressure on you to get results. And many times it's about the how we do what we do, because we still need to do it. We still need to have conversations. We need to still have meetings. So how are we showing up? So here is in coaching, something that I really love is developing higher level of awareness. So it's not all about doing, but how we do what we do. What is our awareness about how we are showing up? Maybe there is a discrepancy between what is our intention and what we are doing and saying. And if we don't get feedback, we may not realize that there are big difference between what we think, who we are being as a leader, and what we are really being perceived as or doing. So I think these are good questions. And I think coaching is
Very
about
good.
questions. Coaching is
Absolutely.
about asking questions ourselves.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
What if you coach a team and you're adopting this mindset, you're seeing results, but you have one or two people on the team who aren't bought in? They're not giving you authentic answers. Perhaps you haven't built enough trust. We don't know, but you have a couple people on a team that aren't following the practice that you're talking about. What do you do in that situation if you've tried asking the questions that you've asked?
Yeah, so there are different possibilities. I like to say that in coaching, we always go in two directions. So let's say that you are the leader and this is your team, and I will be coaching you. I will tell you we are going to go in those directions from present to future, where we are and where we need to be, and what is the gap between where we are and where we need to be. So in this team, where the team is and where the team needs to be. And then we say horizontally, and then vertically, we go from the surface to the depth, from what we observe to what is underlying. So what you observe are two people who are resistant, two people who are not buying into it. So when you see that behavior, the question is what is underlying. So you start talking about possibilities. So I will be very curious. What is underlying? It is
Okay.
they don't trust me or the process. They don't see the value. They don't understand. It's an issue about understanding. what is going on. It's an issue about trust. They don't trust me or they don't trust the organization. It's an issue about fear. Many times, what you see underlying resistance is fear, and the fear can be to the uncertain, fear to change. Many times, when you ask people to do something new or something different, they don't know if they're going to get the same result they used to have. So many times, when you start exploring what is under resistance, you see here resistance underlying maybe fear of failure, fear of having to work harder. I don't know, whatever can be there. So I think the approach is always curiosity to explore with them what is really their thinking and showing understanding. Many times people want to be understood, even though you may not agree, but at least showing understanding, I think is very appreciated. And then sometimes leaders need to let go of people. If they are not aligned with the team vision, if they don't agree where we are going, sometimes that's one of the biggest challenges for leaders when people are not willing to move on from where they are to the next or the new philosophy perspectives. They may need to leave.
And that is very hard. I think you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think when we invest so much in people, we want to see a return on that investment. And when you're
Yeah.
pouring into someone and it's just not sticking, the way I've had to reconcile it, and I've hated doing it every time I've done it, is I think that person will be happier somewhere else. And if I truly am a leader, I need to let them go find that. Even though it's uncomfortable and they're not happy and I'm not happy, it's not working. And could they be happier somewhere else? Yeah.
And I think that we need to provide them all of the opportunities. I'm not saying that that should be the first move. I
Right.
think we should have coaching conversations. But at one point, coaching conversations don't work any longer.
Yeah.
So this is one of the challenges for many leaders is to know when to stop the coaching conversation, to start the performance management conversation, that are different conversations. And this is one of the very common challenges for many leaders is how to go from how to coach, understand, and to support, and go deeper and provide support to saying, okay, this is not working. We need to get into a performance management conversation.
One of the conversations I have a lot of times with clients is they were part of a team and now they're promoted to being in charge of the team. So they're at a director or a VP level, but they were one of the team before under a different director or VP. How does someone in that situation, because I'm sure that happens to a lot of people, how do they bring a coaching mindset to now managing and leading what were their peers that are now their direct reports? Are there different guidelines for that?
That's a great question. And I do believe that it's a transition time because everybody has to adjust. You need to adjust from being a peer to being a leader. And sometimes people don't want that. They want to continue their relationship. They want to be the leader, but they want to still be the same friends. And you can maybe do that, but you also need to be clear about boundaries. What are the boundaries in terms, okay, where your friendship and your peer relationship stops? Because now they're reporting to you. So it's an adjustment. And many times peers really resist that too because they may be competing for the position, but it's very common too. You know, there are people competing and then one gets it and that one is upset. Sometimes they leave, sometimes they don't. So if they stay, they all need to adjust and learn from each other. What I like to ask people as a tip, as a suggestion, and it's also in my book because one of the elements of a coaching mindset is contracting, agreeing how we are going to work together. So we have a relationship before, we have a new relationship now. What do we need from each other to work effectively in this new relationship? So bring this to conversation. So I have a whole chapter on the book about contracting and agreeing how we are going to work together and what are the expectations. And I say, people don't have a crystal ball. People cannot read your mind. You need to let people know what do you need, what do you want, what is your approach, and also listen what do they need from you because everybody working for you needs different things. So you need to find out what they need from you as a new boss. So having this conversation about expectations. The more that we talk about expectations, what is in our mind, the more effective we are at building trust, what you were saying before, because underlying is, can I trust you? So, and do you know what? People would do things, if they trust you and they care about you as a boss, they would do things for you that they may not do for other people that they don't care or trust. So at the end of the day, as you said before, people leave jobs because of their bosses, not because of something else. People stay at the jobs, and people do their best, and people do the extra mile when they love their bosses and they feel that their bosses are supporting of them. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Exactly. Yeah. It becomes very individualized, right? I don't treat everyone on the team the same way. I don't, and in a healthy way, right? I understand your individual goals, your career, what you want, and how you want to be managed and led. And I'm willing to go the extra mile to deliver that as the leader. And that's a lot of work. It is absolutely a lot of, it is much easier to give orders, right? You think of military, just give orders and everybody falls in line. That's easier, but that's not how companies thrive. That's not how leaders grow. So we are asking for something that's harder in a sense. The return on
And
investment is much bigger, but it can be seen as a little bit harder. Would you
And I know
agree?
that you do have some experience in the military. And interestingly, you see that there is also a shift in the military. The militaries also, the leaders are learning coaching skills so they can be more coach-like. Because at the end of the day, they get better results if they're coach-like than just giving orders. And,
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
loyalty does not come just with the uniform. Yeah.
And then you see the cultural differences too. This is another element that in different cultures, there are different expectations. Like, for example, once I was working for a company in India, and I said, okay, we are going to partner here, we're going to collaborate, we're going to do this together. And they said, no, we don't want that. We want you to tell us what to do. I said, okay, reaccommodate, readjust. So sometimes we need to have the resilience to know what is required in different contexts and places.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point because I'm sure you're seeing this in your teams. A lot of my teams are cross-cultural. So I might be working with a leader in India or Israel or France, but they're managing people in the States and across South America. And so culturally, one of the things I try to teach is you have to understand what your South American employees feel about this approach, or how it's going to be received in cultures that maybe aren't as self-promotional, if I'm talking about advancing their visibility. So even though we might be thinking about our own culture and the lens that we look through, I think we have to think that our team is global. Our clients are global. It's everything changed. Would
And
you
because
agree?
of
Are you
that,
seeing that?
and because of that, we don't need to be experts in all of these cultures, but we may just ask, based on
Yeah.
your experience, what do you need from me? That's it.
Yeah.
What do you need from me? It's a short question, but gets a lot of value from
And some
understand
of
the
that
differences.
trust building
Yeah,
comes from that, right?
exactly.
Yeah, asking how is this experienced for you? How does this work for you? Tell me about that. And then if you really are listening to learn and not listening to placate, right, then you're growing as a leader because now you have new information and insight that might be relevant to other people as well.
Yeah.
So another selfish question, because I made this mistake a lot when I first started managing teams and leading. I wanted to be everyone's friend. I am a people pleaser. And leading with a coaching mindset doesn't mean that everybody loves you. So how do you navigate? You talked about boundaries earlier, but how do you really navigate that when I think at a bottom line, most of us want to be liked,
I
respected
agree.
and trusted and all of that. But that's not really the role of a leader, is it?
No, we need to be friendly, not necessarily friends. If we are friendly
I love that.
and we listen and we care genuinely, caring genuinely, you will find that many times people may go to their bosses and share information with them in their personal life. And leaders may respond to that in different ways. Some may not want to know, and others are more interested or curious. Doesn't matter. But it's not appropriate for the boss to start sharing a lot of their own personal things. Can you hear the difference? Like I may go to my boss and share some personal challenges, but it's completely inappropriate for the boss, for example, to share his or her own challenges with the own boss. that I don't think it's appropriate. There should be other places to do that, like with peers, but not with direct reports. It's like we need to know boundaries, what are the right boundaries in terms of what we share and what we do not share. So it's about being friendly, being collaborative, but not necessarily friends. When you are friends and you share mutually your experiences and your life, if you are mature, and there is a niche of maturity to here. If you are mature, you may be able to do it. My experience, many times people are not mature enough. And what mature enough, I mean wise enough and having the skills to be able to put boundaries and knowing when we're working, we are not being friends. And sometimes you need to point out, and it's interesting, Lida, I work with my parents. So sometimes I had to tell them, okay, this, I am the boss.
I can't
and,
even imagine.
and and sometimes they don't like that when I say, okay, you don't like recently they are like me, we're too nice. So sometimes you cannot be too nice. Sometimes you need to be in teaching a class in a program that I train coaches and I train supervisors, and they work with me training supervisors in Spanish worldwide from Latin America and Spain. And my mom was being too nice, and I had to say, no, you cannot be too nice, and you need to tell them, that was not appropriate, that they need to send the report again. So it was out a report. So we need to know how to put the boundaries and how to clarify. Okay, here we have a different relationship than the one after that. So people need to be willing to embrace these boundaries.
And I think that is something that I think no matter how old you are is still something that's tough to do, right? Personal and professional boundaries. I know in the States, we're taught to say yes, to try to do more, go above and beyond. But I love what you said about being friendly, but not friends. This is work. And if you're leading, sometimes that line can get blurred. And it's really hard to go backwards once you've crossed it. Yeah.
And when you have leaders that you trust and that you like, even if you are not friends, you enjoy your work better because you know that your leader there is to support you. Leaders are supposed to be there to get results through people. That's another way to define leadership, is influencing people to get results through others. So your job is to support them so they can get the results versus being in their way to get the results because they're too upset with you, or for whatever reason you're in their way, instead of being supportive for them to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
I'm curious what you think about this. One of the things I sometimes do when I coach a client is I will share an example of something that happened to me, or a situation that another client was going through. In how I'm guiding this client, I'll use someone else's or my own examples to illustrate a recommendation or guidance. In traditional coaching, is that done? I mean, I don't have the traditional coaching background like you do. So I'm wondering, is it more about asking questions, or is it also about contributing recommendations and guidance and advice?
Well, I think all depends on what the client needs, because clients may need different things. Leaders may come to coaching with different goals and expectations. The International Coach Federation defines coaching, as I said before, about maximizing people's potential, and it's a partnership. So the philosophy of ICF, the International Coach Federation, is that clients have their own answers. So our job as coaches is to support them to find these answers. So our job is to hold the space so people can think. They may not have anybody else in their life that is going to hold the space for them to think aloud and come up with their own solutions. So the idea is that in this partnership and in this collaboration, the coach asks questions and invite the client to look at places they are not paying attention to.
Mm.
Sometimes we ask questions and people say, I don't know. Yes, they don't know at that moment, in that second, it's not in their awareness. But if we hold the space and we wait, they may bring something that it was not in their consciousness or in their awareness from the past or from other experience that they can apply. So it's about exploring, and this is in professional coaching, but in coaching, leaders coaching, their people is also the same. It's about holding the space so that the direct report can think, asking them questions so they can come up with their own solutions. It's easier going to your boss and asking, what do I do? And the boss
Right.
answers. But when the boss asks you, okay, if you're going to come with me with a problem, always bring an answer.
Mhm.
We will discuss, okay, so you're bringing a problem. Tell me, what do you think you're going to do? And then we can discuss from there. So you cannot be lazy. You really need to be proactive. You really need to think ahead. Okay, what is my edge here? What can I try? What do I need to do differently? So there may be a space to share best practices. So it's not about giving advice, coaching in this framework. It's about holding the space for people to think and supporting people to come up with their own solutions and making them accountable. So you can support them in the process to get results. And it's about getting new insights. It's about learning. It's about looking at things from different perspectives. But there is always a space for sharing best practices. So I may say, okay, these are what other leaders have done. Maybe you want to consider that. But if we are prescriptive, like a doctor, and we say, okay, you need to do this, if it does not work, then we are responsible for that. We don't want that.
True.
So you can share
True.
experiences. You can share your experiences. You can share best practices just to illustrate and to provoke something on your client, not expecting that they will do the same. So I do believe that there is a space to share experiences, share best practices, but I like first to make my clients work, and then later I will do that.
I like that. I'm going to make my clients work more. I like that. If any of them are listening, get ready. I know we have some people putting questions in the chat, and get those
Okay.
questions ready, because in just a moment we're going to let Dr. Goldvarg answer your questions, and you're going to hear from the expert of experts. But I guess a final question: when coaching a team, when you're a leader of a team, is it best to have one-on-one meetings, or can you coach the team together?
You can do both. You
Okay.
can do both. You can team people individually for their own career goals or their own performance, and then you want to also coach the team as a team. And when you're coaching the team, as a leader, or like I also train team coaches, like external team coaches that come to the organization. But if you're a leader and you want to coach your team, you need to help the team to identify where they are and where they need to be and what is that gap. So your job as a team coach first is identifying the gap between where the team is and where the team needs to be, and then holding the space for the team to think and come up with strategies to take the team to the next level. So it's not only about what needs to be done as a task, as a job, but also as a process, looking as a team, and considering what are the activities or what they need to be paying attention to so they can be more effective.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm going to listen to the replay of this, because I couldn't write notes the whole time. I've learned so much. Some of the things I heard you say as action items for those of us listening: invest time in developing yourself as a leader and developing your team. I love what you said about leading through people, not because of or with. And I think that subtle distinction is so powerful. Shifting the focus from outcome measures and deliverables, and all of those tangible things that maybe you listening as a leader are getting pressured to focus on, but really pay attention to developing the people around you. As Dr. Goldvarg said, they will work harder for you, they will go further for you, and if you leave, they'll probably follow you. So there's a positive. Become an active listener. So creating that space, asking a question, and then, socially, we're always awkward and uncomfortable with silence. But I'm a huge fan of using silence strategically. And this is another example where we can do that. Ask an open-ended question, and then let someone process and find time. And maybe they don't have the answer right away, but given a few extra seconds or even minutes, they might come up with that answer. And then offering feedback, offering input, but also asking the questions. What do you need? How can I help you get there? What's important to you? As you said that, I was remembering a couple of years ago, I went out to Philadelphia, or actually it was Pittsburgh, excuse me, where both of my team members are. They're both close to Pittsburgh. And we had a meeting in person. We're a small group. And I said to them, I want to understand, what are your career goals? They work really hard for me. what does this mean for you? One of them is, is a stay-at-home mom and she's full-time with her children. Sabrina, who works with me, has had a career as she's been raising kids, but I want to know what their plan is. What's their long term? I would hate to lose either of them, but I would hate more to think I held them back. So if there's an area I can help grow them and develop their professional skills, hopefully it benefits the company, but it benefits them as human beings. And as a leader, that's important to me. So I think asking those questions, as you said, not just on a yearly basis, but periodically, are the projects you're getting tracking with where you want to be in your career? Are there skills you need to develop, maybe that are even outside of what I can offer, that we can find ways to support so that you can always feel like you're growing and learning? Human beings are not static, right? We're dynamic. We want to be growing and learning and stretching those muscles. So just such fabulous content today. Sabrina, I know we've had some questions come into the chat, and I know my colleague would be happy to help. Tina says, hi, Tina. I lead with a coaching mindset. My challenge is that some of my team members are content in what they do today and are not open to skilling up for future needs to meet the needs of the learning and development industry that we work in. Well, that is definitely a growing industry. What would you have
That's a
as
great
advice?
point. So when people don't want to do things, as I was saying before, I'm curious what is really stopping them. Either they are not, it's an understanding issue, either they are not understanding what is the cost of not doing that,
Mhm.
or is an issue that they are too comfortable now, or what is the real issue. So Tina, my question for you will be to explore with them what is really stopping them, what are the concerns, what is in their minds,
Mhm.
and sometimes informing and letting people know about what are the trends and what's happening. So many times people don't have the information, so they don't understand or they don't want to see what's coming. So, for example, I shared in my LinkedIn feed an article about robots,
Mhm.
and how they are going to be impacting our lives. And I thought that this is going to be life-changing experience in the next few years. And do you know what, Lida? I didn't have many movement
Yeah.
with that post, and I was wondering what's going on. Everybody should be reading this. Everybody should be preparing for this. And compared to other posts that I have, that many people read, comment, repost, this didn't have a lot of reactions. And I thought, oh, people are not ready. People don't want to look at this. And we have to, because robots are going to be in our lives coming up pretty soon. And if
I
you're not paying attention to, you're going to be left behind. So sometimes, like Tina, you're not alone in what you're sharing. Like I share, this is my experience, what I'm seeing people's reactions. So it's always a key element about being. And by the way, leader, the example that you provided before was an excellent example of a leader with a coaching mindset, leading with a coaching mindset, how you meet with your team and have these questions. So here is about conversations and being curious, curiosity. Curiosity is a great trait of a leader with a coaching mindset, and being curious, what is stopping them, what they are not seeing. And then sometimes what we need is people's information. Sometimes what we need is reinforcement. Sometimes it's lack of confidence. So it depends exactly what is going on for them.
think you hit on something earlier too, that has definitely rung true for me. I was once leading someone who did not want to do things different, right? It had worked the last 10 times we did it, and therefore it should work the next 20 times. But I saw things shifting. I saw the landscape moving, and we needed to flex. We needed to be more agile and think about it differently. And this person kept doubling down, but it worked before. Why change it? We don't have to change just because the market's changing. And you said something earlier that really struck true. She was scared. She was scared because she didn't want to look bad. What had happened before had worked, and she'd been recognized and praised for it. And there's risk attached to doing something different. And I think what I did at that time, I must have figured out she was afraid, because I said to her, I know what I'm asking for is risky. And there's a part of me that's a little scared about this. I don't know if you're feeling that, but I'm a little scared that this may not work. And just sort of putting myself in that position led her to say, yeah, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to be laughed at. So I had to kind of open my own vulnerability and acknowledge that, of course, I am a risk taker, but this was a big one. And I could acknowledge, and that sort of opened, because had I just looked at her and said, "Are you scared?" I mean, that is a little confrontational.
Yeah,
But
and
I
you
felt
can, that would
vulnerable
not be
with
the
that.
best language to
No.
use. Yeah.
What are you,
But
chicken?
I thought that you may say, "Are you scared?" And they may say no, and they are, and they may not know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So like having a lot in my coaching, like I ask my client, "Do you think that
So Tina, I
this may be
kind of
happening?"
wonder, I'm sorry, I kind of wonder, Tina, if there isn't fear, right? If there isn't fear to something different. In my book about influence, I talk about that wonderful little book, Who Moved My Cheese, right? It is so simple, but it's all about those people who, and we all know them, we all work with them. They don't want to change. They don't want to do it differently, even though the world and the market and the customers, everything else has changed. And sort of having that conversation in a safe way, creating psychological safety, can open what's really behind it, and that person then becomes an advocate to other people who might also feel the same way. So it could be fear.
And listen, some companies fail because of that.
Hmm.
Look at the competitors. Maybe you need, this is another exercise. Look at your competitors, what your competitors are doing.
Yeah,
Are you keeping track? Because you may think, oh, it's not necessary, and then you may lose your job, or the company may go down because you're not paying attention to the trends and what's happening. We have a
great
lot of
point.
examples and stories about that.
Sabrina, is there another question? Oh, Hassan, thank you. What strategies work best when coaching a high performing but uncooperative team member? We talked a little bit about this earlier. And Hassan, I believe you are also in Saudi Arabia. So now we've got some cultural things going on there too.
Yeah, so when the person is high potential but is uncooperative, I'm wondering what's really going on. They can be stars, and sometimes they may think that they don't need anything. They are stars, just leave me alone. Like let me do my job. Um, so sometimes it can be competition. That's a dynamic of competition. Sometimes it's very interesting in organizations. Power struggles, how people manage and relate to power. So this may or may not be related to how the leader is showing up, but how people project on leadership issues. So sometimes it's the leader who is provoking things, maybe unintentionally, but sometimes the leader is not doing that, and still he or she gets negative energy and resistance and lack of cooperation. So you wonder what's really going on. What you were saying before, Lida, about productivity versus developing people and spending time in the how, not only the what, but the how.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, people are going to be measured by these numbers. So we still need to work on them.
Yeah.
And we can also embrace the values of the companies. Many times companies have goals and they are not embracing their own values. So I bring this to their awareness. Okay, what are the values of this company? How are you embracing them? How are you living them? So you can bring this to the conversation. So you can go to your boss or other places. Say, okay, yes, we need to do that, but these are our values of this organization. I am embracing them as a leader, and this is what I am doing. So that is a really good argument to deal with that part.
Fabulous. I am sure everyone who is participating has taken so many notes, as I know I have. What are some final words you'd like to leave us with before we let everyone go out and start acting on all these new tools?
Well, what I like to say that we shouldn't be alone. So whatever you are going to be doing, look for partners to support you. My experience in life personally is that anything we do, all of the results that we have, like you finish your new book, Lida, I am having a new book next year, is all collaboration with tons of people. Like now, Lida, you invited me to do this. I am learning from you and from the people who are here, supporting them in some way. We need to pay attention to collaborating and supporting each other and bringing people to support us in our goals, wherever they are. So how we bring people to support us, how we support others, so they can have lives that are more fulfilling, with more satisfaction, with more well-being. At the end, this is my vision, how we accomplish that through higher level of awareness, how we can be more aware about how our behaviors are impacting others for good or not.
Wow, love that. What a wonderful message to end this program, to end my series of Live with Lida programs for 2024, and for us to think about as we head into the new year. We shouldn't be alone, right? There are too many people around us who want to help, who we can help. And so finding those opportunities for collaboration within the organization, within your community, within your industry, it really is where we build that social connectedness that we need as human beings. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Damian Goldvarg. Just so much information and so much insight. And I think it's really true that you love what you do, and that comes through. And I know you have a huge following of people who have learned from you, have been led by you. And I'm sure our audience, people listening, are going to want to connect with you on LinkedIn and continue to learn from you. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I hope you do, please be sure to sign up for my newsletter where I share insights like Dr. Goldvarg's today. We've got more programs coming in 2024. And if you haven't yet picked up a copy of, let me see if I can get it in the frame, The New Rules of Influence, please do so today. And when you've read the book, I would love to hear from you, what it meant, what questions came up for you, and how I can better serve you. From me and my team at Lida 360, thank you for joining us today. And I wish you a healthy and safe holiday season. And I'll see you back in 2025. Thank you. Bye.